75 feet beneath the east wing of the White House lies a fortress that has never been photographed. No journalist has ever stepped inside. No tourist will ever see its reinforced walls. And yet, when the world stands on the brink of catastrophe, this is where the most powerful person on Earth disappears. This is the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, known simply as the PEOC. It's a Cold War relic that has been transformed into one of the most sophisticated command centers on the planet. Built to withstand nuclear blasts, equipped with technology that can wage war or broker peace, and staffed by personnel sworn to absolute secrecy, the PEOC represents the ultimate failsafe in American governance. Understanding what lies beneath the White House means understanding how power truly operates when everything else collapses. The story of the PEOC begins not with presidents, but with a profound fear that gripped America in the darkest days of World War II. In 1942, with German U-boats prowling the Atlantic coast and Japanese forces surging across the Pacific, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt faced a terrifying reality. Washington, D.C. was vulnerable. The nation's capital, with its monuments and marble buildings, could be reduced to rubble in a coordinated attack. The president needed a place to continue governing even if the city burned above him. Construction began that year on what would become the first iteration of the White House bunker. Engineers carved through bedrock and poured reinforced concrete to create a bomb shelter beneath the East Wing. The facility was rudimentary by today's standards, essentially a hardened room with basic communications equipment and enough space for the president and key advisors to wait out an air raid. But it established a principle that would define American continuity of government planning for generations. The president must be able to lead from underground. The Cold War transformed this principle into an obsession. When the Soviet Union detonated its first atomic bomb in 1949, the calculus changed entirely. Air raids were one thing, nuclear annihilation was another. The original bunker, adequate for conventional warfare, was hopelessly inadequate for the thermonuclear age. Throughout the 1950s, as both superpowers accumulated arsenals capable of ending civilization, American planners faced a grim question. How do you protect the presidency from weapons that can vaporize entire cities? The answer came in stages. During the Truman administration, engineers began expanding and reinforcing the underground complex. President Dwight Eisenhower, who understood military logistics better than perhaps any president before or since, pushed for even more ambitious upgrades. By the early 1960s, the facility had grown into something more sophisticated. Not just a shelter, but a command post. It needed to be. Because the doctrine of mutual assured destruction required that even in the midst of nuclear holocaust, American leadership could retaliate. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 brought the PEOC's purpose into sharp focus. For 13 days, the world teetered on the edge of nuclear war. President John F. Kennedy and his advisors, including his brother Robert, Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara, and military chiefs, gathered repeatedly to debate responses to Soviet missiles in Cuba. While much of this deliberation happened in the cabinet room and other White House spaces, the knowledge that the bunker existed, that continuity of government was possible even in the worst scenario, shaped the psychological landscape of those tense negotiations. Both sides knew that even total war would not completely decapitate American command structure. But it was during the Reagan administration that the PEOC underwent its most significant transformation. In the 1980s, as Cold War tensions escalated again, massive renovations commenced. The facility was deepened, its walls thickened with additional layers of steel and concrete. New ventilation systems were installed, designed to filter out nuclear fallout and chemical weapons. Communications technology was completely overhauled. The PEOC became less of a shelter and more of an alternate Pentagon, a fully operational command center from which the president could direct military forces, communicate with field commanders, and execute the nation's war plans. The renovations cost tens of millions of dollars, though exact figures remain classified. What emerged was a multi-level complex that, according to declassified reports and statements from former officials, includes conference rooms, communication stations, living quarters, medical facilities, and enough provisions to sustain the president and essential staff for an extended period. The blast doors, weighing several tons each, are designed to seal automatically when sensors detect overpressure waves, the signature of a nearby nuclear detonation. The entire structure sits on massive shock absorbers, meant to cushion the complex against the seismic waves that would ripple through the earth following a nuclear strike on Washington. For decades, the PIOC existed primarily in theory. It was tested, maintained, and occasionally visited during drills, but never activated in a genuine crisis. Then came September 11th, 2001. At 9:45 that morning, as American Airlines Flight 77 barreled toward Washington at 530 miles per hour, Secret Service agents burst into Vice President Dick Cheney's West Wing office. They didn't ask permission. They didn't explain. They physically lifted the vice president and rushed him through corridors and down a stairwell, descending into the bunker beneath the White House. Minutes later, the Boeing 757 slammed into the Pentagon, just across the Potomac River. The explosion rattled windows throughout the Capitol. In the PIOC, Cheney and his team realized that the theoretical nightmare had become horrifyingly real. For the next several hours, the PIOC served its intended purpose. Cheney, along with National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice, White House Chief of Staff Andrew Card, and key military and intelligence officials, operated from the bunker. They coordinated with North American Aerospace Defense Command. They tracked the remaining hijacked aircraft. They made the agonizing decision to authorize the military to shoot down commercial airliners if necessary, an order that thankfully never needed to be executed after United Flight 93 crashed in Pennsylvania. President George W. Bush, who was in Florida that morning, remained airborne on Air Force One for hours, creating a mobile command post while Cheney held the ground in Washington. The events of that day revealed both the PIOC's capabilities and its limitations. The facility worked, communications held, personnel could function, decisions were made. But the fog of war proved thick even underground. Conflicting reports came in about additional threats. The chain of command with the president airborne and the vice president underground created moments of confusion about who held ultimate authority. In the weeks and months following 9/11, intelligence officials conducted extensive reviews. Once again, the PIOC underwent upgrades, this time focused on improving secure communications, redundancy of systems, and integration with other command centers. What exactly lies inside the PIOC today remains one of the government's most closely guarded secrets. No detailed floor plans have ever been released. No photographs of the interior exist in the public domain. Former officials who have been inside are bound by non-disclosure agreements and classification restrictions that prevent them from describing specific details. Even members of Congress are not routinely briefed on the facility's full capabilities. However, through decades of careful statements, declassified documents, and occasional leaks, a general picture emerges. The complex is believed to contain multiple conference rooms, including a large situation room equipped with secure video conferencing capabilities that allow the president to communicate with military commanders, intelligence chiefs, and allied leaders worldwide. Screens display real-time data feeds from satellites, drones, and ground sensors. Analysts can monitor developing situations anywhere on the planet. Separate from the command areas are living quarters. These are reportedly modest. This is not a luxury bunker. The president would have a small private room, but the emphasis is on functionality, not comfort. The goal is survival and operational capability, not amenities. Medical facilities are on site, staffed by military physicians capable of handling trauma, conducting surgery, and managing chronic conditions. If the president or key staff members required life-saving intervention during a crisis, they wouldn't need to leave the bunker. The communications infrastructure is perhaps the most critical component. The PIAC maintains multiple redundant systems for reaching the outside world. Hardened fiber optic lines run to key locations. Satellite uplinks provide backup. Radio systems offer additional redundancy. The facility can patch into the National Military Command Center at the Pentagon, Strategic Command in Nebraska, and NORAD in Colorado. It can access the football, the briefcase containing nuclear launch codes, and execute launch orders if necessary. In the ultimate nightmare scenario, the president could initiate a nuclear response from beneath the White House. Environmental systems maintain survivability even if the surface becomes uninhabitable. Air filtration can remove radioactive particles, chemical agents, and biological pathogens. The facility has its own power generation, typically diesel generators with fuel supplies sufficient for weeks of operation. Water supplies are similarly robust, with filtration and storage systems designed for extended independence from city infrastructure. Security is multi-layered and absolute. Access to the PIAC is restricted to personnel with the highest security clearances. Even within the Secret Service, only select agents know the facility's full layout. During normal operations, the bunker is largely empty, maintained by a skeleton crew of technicians and security personnel. But protocols exist for rapid activation. In a crisis, key staff can be assembled and moved underground within minutes. The process is regularly drilled, with exercises conducted to ensure that everyone knows their role and the systems function properly. The PIAC is not alone in the continuity of government architecture. It's one node in a larger network designed to ensure that American leadership survives catastrophic attack. Alternate command posts exist at Camp David, the presidential retreat in Maryland's Catoctin Mountains. Raven Rock Mountain Complex in Pennsylvania, often called the Underground Pentagon, serves as an alternate national military command center. Mount Weather in Virginia houses facilities for continuity of civilian government. During the Cold War, an entire underground city was built at Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia to shelter Congress, though that facility was decommissioned after its existence was revealed in 1992. These distributed sites reflect a strategic reality. No single bunker, no matter how hardened, is truly invulnerable. Modern nuclear weapons, delivered with precision guidance systems, could potentially destroy even the most robust underground facilities. The goal, therefore, is redundancy. If one site is compromised, leadership can function from another. The PIAC provides immediate shelter and command capability right beneath the White House, but it's understood that prolonged continuity of government might require evacuation to more distant, more deeply buried facilities. The psychological dimensions of the PIAC are as significant as the physical ones. The existence of the bunker shapes how presidents think about crisis and risk. Knowing that shelter exists, that governance can continue even through nuclear war, affects decision-making in ways both subtle and profound. During the darkest moments of the Cold War, this knowledge may have provided the confidence necessary for American leaders to stand firm against Soviet threats, secure in the understanding that even the worst outcome wouldn't completely eliminate American power. But the bunker also carries darker implications. The PIAC represents a vision of survival that is fundamentally unequal. If nuclear war came, the president would be whisked to safety while millions of Americans perished above. This reality has troubled some observers and ethicists. Is it right that leadership survives while those they lead do not? The standard justification is that continuity of government serves the broader public good, that someone must survive to coordinate response, organize recovery, and prevent the total collapse of social order. But the moral weight of descending into that bunker while cities burn above would be an almost unbearable burden. In recent years, the threats that might drive a president into the PIAC have evolved. Nuclear war remains a possibility, particularly with Russian and American arsenals still numbering in the thousands of warheads each. But new dangers have emerged. Cyber attacks could cripple critical infrastructure without dropping a single bomb. Biological weapons or pandemics could render the surface temporarily uninhabitable. Domestic terrorism or civil unrest could threaten the White House itself. The PIAC's role has expanded to encompass these modern threats, with upgrades to cybersecurity and communication systems that reflect the changing nature of warfare and crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic offered a glimpse of continuity of government planning and action, though not in the way Cold War planners had envisioned. As the virus spread in early 2020, protocols were activated to protect the president and key staff. While President Trump didn't relocate to the PIAC, discussions occurred about separating key officials to prevent simultaneous infection. Vice President Mike Pence was kept physically distant from the president at certain points. The pandemic underscored that continuity of government isn't only about nuclear war, it's about ensuring leadership survives any existential crisis. Interestingly, the PIAC has occasionally served purposes beyond crisis management. During major events in Washington, State of the Union addresses, inaugurations, large protests, the Secret Service sometimes positions key personnel near the bunker as a precaution. The facility represents the ultimate insurance policy, always ready even if hopefully never needed. Yet for all its sophistication, the PIAC cannot fully insulate leadership from the consequences of catastrophic decisions. If nuclear weapons were launched, if cities were destroyed, if millions died, the president would have to live with those outcomes even from the safety of the bunker. The PIAC preserves the office and the individual, but it cannot preserve the world they knew. In some ways, survival in such circumstances might be its own form of sentence, to live on as the custodian of ashes, responsible for rebuilding from ruins. The absolute secrecy surrounding the PIAC is itself strategically important. Adversaries know the bunker exists. That's not a secret. But they don't know its precise vulnerabilities, its exact depth, the specifications of its defenses. This uncertainty forces potential attackers to assume the worst, to plan for a facility more robust than it might actually be. Secrecy becomes a force multiplier, enhancing security through ambiguity. As technology advances and threats evolve, the PIAC will continue to be upgraded. Artificial intelligence systems may eventually assist in decision-making, processing vast amounts of data faster than human analysts can manage. Quantum encrypted communications could make interception impossible. Advanced sensors might provide even earlier warning of incoming threats. But the core purpose will remain unchanged: to ensure that American governance continues no matter what happens above ground. 75 feet beneath the White House, behind blast doors and steel-reinforced walls, in rooms that most Americans will never see, the United States has built a monument to survival. The PIAC is not elegant. It is not comforting. It is a cold, functional space designed for the darkest moments in human history. But it exists because history has taught a bitter lesson. Nations that fail to plan for catastrophe rarely survive it. The bunker beneath the White House is America's bet against the end of the world, a statement carved in concrete and steel that no matter what comes, leadership will endure, decisions will be made, and the republic will persist. Whether that bunker ever fulfills its ultimate purpose remains one of the great uncertainties of our age. Its very existence is meant to ensure that such a test never comes. And in that paradox lies perhaps its greatest value: a shield that protects best when never raised, a fortress most effective when its walls are never breached.